For decades, Hollywood's golden age glittered with icons who seemed larger than life. They had beauty, power, and fame beyond imagination. To the world, they were gods draped in silk and spotlight. But behind the silver screen's glow, many of these legends believed their stardom made them untouchable, until Hollywood itself reminded them that no one stays above the fall forever. This is the untold story of 15 Golden Age stars whose arrogance blinded them, whose empires crumbled, and whose names, though immortal, became cautionary tales in the land of eternal youth. That if this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Number 15, Orson Welles, the boy wonder who fell to earth. When Citizen Kane premiered in 1941, Orson Welles was only 25, a boy genius hailed as the future of cinema. His confidence was intoxicating. He wrote, directed, and starred in what critics called a masterpiece of modern storytelling. But genius came with ego. Welles clashed with studio heads, dismissed collaborators, and refused to compromise on anything. He once said, "I expect every man to do his job my way." Hollywood adored his brilliance, until his arrogance became impossible to control. After The Magnificent Ambersons was butchered by studio edits, Welles' career began to collapse under his own weight. Once the golden boy, he spent his later years begging for funding, a fallen titan haunted by the kingdom he built and destroyed himself. Number 14, Joan Crawford, the queen who demanded bowing subjects. To audiences, Joan Crawford was the embodiment of class and power. But behind the scenes, she demanded absolute control. Crawford ruled sets like a monarch, ordering her co-stars around, scrutinizing lighting, and obsessively monitoring her image. She insisted everyone call her Miss Crawford, even decades after her peak. Crew members learned quickly, never cross Joan. Her perfectionism wasn't just a trait, it was a weapon. Yet, as Hollywood evolved, so did its tolerance. Younger stars with fresh faces replaced her, and her once royal presence turned into desperation. By the 1960s, Crawford's obsession with image and dominance alienated nearly everyone who once admired her. Even her daughter's chilling memoir would later expose the iron fist behind the glamour. Number 13, Errol Flynn, the swashbuckler who couldn't be tamed. Errol Flynn lived like one of his own adventure heroes, reckless, daring, and unstoppable. On screen, he was the charming rogue. Off-screen, his arrogance was legend. He treated sets like playgrounds and directors like servants. Women adored him, men envied him, and Flynn made sure everyone knew it. But Hollywood's golden pirate eventually ran aground. His infamous scandals, drunken escapades, court cases, and reckless behavior shattered his reputation. He once sneered that he'd never grow old gracefully, and he kept his word. By the time he died at 50, Flynn was broke, bloated, and forgotten by the empire that once made him immortal. Number 12, Bette Davis, the diva who refused to bow. Bette Davis was never one to fade quietly. She fought her way into Hollywood's heart with raw talent and a tongue sharp enough to cut steel. Davis demanded the best roles, the best scripts, and the best co-stars, and often got them. But her relentless perfectionism became both her crown and her curse. Her arrogance alienated studio executives, and her brutal honesty made enemies faster than friends. When Davis sued Warner Brothers for restricting her creative freedom, it was seen as both bold and foolish. Though she lost the case, she changed the industry forever. Yet, even in her triumphs, Davis remained alone, admired but unapproachable, respected but feared. She once said, "I will never be below the title." She never was, but the world eventually stopped reading it. Number 11, Ava Gardner, the beauty who burned her own bridge. Ava Gardner was beauty personified, magnetic, untouchable, the kind of woman who could silence a room with a glance. But she knew it and flaunted it. Ava's allure made her a global sensation. Yet her defiance toward Hollywood's expectations became her undoing. She mocked the press, insulted executives, and called herself the world's most reluctant movie star. Her stormy relationships, especially with Frank Sinatra, turned her private life into front-page drama. Gardner's temper, pride, and refusal to play the game cost her dearly. By the end, she had traded glamour for exile, living in London with fading fame, but unbroken spirit. Her arrogance had driven her from the city that made her, but also freed her from its chains. Number 10, Clark Gable, the king who thought he owned the crown. Clark Gable wasn't just Hollywood royalty, he was the king. But even kings can overstep. After Gone with the Wind, Gable's ego soared. He refused advice, ignored directors, and often dismissed his co-stars. His on-set dominance created tension wherever he went. Yet fame has a cruel way of turning on its favorites. As younger actors rose, Gable's authority waned. His arrogance became an anchor, dragging down his later performances. By his final years, the King of Hollywood had become a relic, respected but irrelevant. Even his final film carried the quiet ache of a man who once ruled a world that no longer existed. Number 9, Judy Garland, the star who couldn't escape her spotlight. Judy Garland's voice could move mountains, but her fame became her prison. From a young age, the studio system controlled every aspect of her life: diet, sleep, appearance. By adulthood, she'd learned one painful truth. Power doesn't come from fame, but from defiance. And defy she did. Garland's growing frustration with MGM's control led her to lash out, skip rehearsals, and challenge authority. Her arrogance was born not from pride, but survival, a rebellion against an industry that treated her as property. Yet Hollywood had no patience for rebellion cloaked in fragility. Fired, rehired, and abandoned again, Garland's tragic decline was a slow-motion heartbreak. Her story remains one of the most haunting lessons of Golden Age cruelty. Number 8, Humphrey Bogart, the rebel who played by his own rules. Bogart never fit Hollywood's mold. He was too honest, too stubborn, too unwilling to play the game. His arrogance was quieter, an unshakable belief that he knew better than the system. He mocked the industry's glamour and refused to flatter its gatekeepers. But Bogart's confidence had an edge. His disdain for authority often left him isolated. Still, he became one of the few who transformed arrogance into authenticity. When asked about Hollywood politics, he famously replied, "I don't belong to any club that would have me." It was both an insult and a badge of honor. Bogart's arrogance didn't destroy him, it defined him. Number 7, Marilyn Monroe, the goddess who wanted to be taken seriously. No star embodied beauty like Marilyn Monroe, but behind the pout and platinum hair was a woman tired of being underestimated. Monroe's arrogance wasn't cruelty, it was desperation for respect. She walked out of contracts, defied directors, and even founded her own production company to prove she was more than a pretty face. But the world wasn't ready for a woman demanding power in a man's empire. Her confidence was labeled as vanity, her independence as madness. Monroe's struggle to be seen as an artist rather than an ornament became her undoing. She once said, "Hollywood is a place where they'll pay you $1,000 for a kiss and 50 cents for your soul." She knew the price, and she paid it. Number 6, Marlon Brando, the genius who stopped caring. Marlon Brando was the method acting revolution. He shattered the old Hollywood archetype, but soon his genius turned to arrogance. Brando openly insulted directors, refused scripts, and sometimes mumbled through scenes just to prove he could. On set, he played power games with co-stars, turning every production into a psychological battlefield. Yet his brilliance couldn't protect him forever. By the 1970s, Brando's reputation was toxic. His refusal to conform made him a pariah. Still, his return in The Godfather proved his unmatched talent, but even that victory came with conditions. Hollywood forgave him, but never forgot the trouble he caused. Number 5, Katharine Hepburn, the icon who dared to disobey. Hepburn was unlike anyone before her, sharp, witty, and unapologetically herself. She defied dress codes, mocked convention, and demanded roles written for men. Her arrogance? She called it independence. Studios called it rebellion. Early in her career, Her bluntness nearly ended her stardom. Critics dubbed her box office poison. But Hepburn never bowed. She chose Broadway over Hollywood, waited for the tide to turn, and when it did, she returned triumphant. Her story proved that sometimes arrogance is just confidence ahead of its time. Number 4, Spencer Tracy, the perfectionist who couldn't forgive himself. Tracy's arrogance wasn't directed at others, it was turned inward. He demanded flawlessness from himself and despised anyone who got in the way of his process. His intensity made him brilliant, but impossible to work with. Tracy's self-loathing fed his alcoholism, and his guilt destroyed his peace. He lived 2 lives, the public hero and the private wreck. Hollywood adored his strength, but never saw the cracks beneath it. In the end, his arrogance toward imperfection became a lifelong torment. Tracy didn't fall from grace, he drowned in it. Number 3, Elizabeth Taylor, the princess who became a power broker. Elizabeth Taylor grew up in front of the camera and learned early that beauty meant leverage. By her 20s, she was untouchable, and she acted like it. Taylor's arrogance was imperial. She demanded record salaries, hand-picked directors, and made studios bend to her will. Her marriage to Richard Burton turned into a media empire of passion and scandal. She knew her worth and made sure everyone else did too. Yet behind the diamonds and drama was a woman unafraid to control her destiny. Taylor's arrogance didn't end her, it built her empire. But it also left her isolated, adored by millions, yet understood by none. Number 2, Charlie Chaplin, the genius who outran his shadow. Charlie Chaplin was the face of silent cinema, a visionary who shaped modern storytelling. But genius often breeds isolation. Chaplin's arrogance was intellectual. He believed no one could match his insight, and often treated collaborators as tools for his art. His perfectionism was infamous. One scene could take hundreds of takes, but arrogance has consequences. Accusations, controversies, and political disputes drove Chaplin into exile. The man who made the world laugh became the one it refused to welcome home. In the end, Chaplin's brilliance outlived his pride, but it came at a heavy cost. Number 1, Mae West, the woman who made Hollywood blush. Before Marilyn, before Madonna, there was Mae West, a woman so confident she made censorship itself tremble. Her arrogance was electric. West wrote her own scripts, dictated her dialogue, and defied every man who tried to control her. "I believe in censorship," she once quipped. "I made a fortune out of it." But as times changed, West refused to evolve. Her confidence hardened into self-parody. She became trapped by her own legend, clinging to the image she built when the world wanted something new. Still, she remained unapologetically herself to the very end. A woman who proved that arrogance, when owned completely, can turn into legacy.